Um, I'll now welcome Gangaji, and we will all sit together in silence for a few minutes. And Gangaji will let us know when the silence is over. So if you wish to close your eyes for the next few minutes, please take part in that and enjoy the webinar. Have a great afternoon.
So as Ricky said, we'll sit together about 10 minutes. This is an opportunity to really just bring everything that has been happening and is happening into the seat of silence in your own heart, your own quiet mind. Nothing particular to do, just to be here together in silence. you. Silence is really the core, the essence, the finality of the teaching, the invitation I bring you today from my teacher, Papaji, and through Papaji from Ramana Maharshi. And for those of you who've never met me before, I'll just give a brief summation of my life story and how it came to an end and then the fulfillment began. Because that's really the invitation for you, that your life story, the story that you tell yourself, the narrative that goes on in your mind, really has a beginning and a middle and an end, as all stories do. Stories are wonderful. Telling stories is a profound and moving way to share the greatest teachings. And our individual stories are wonderful too. They're extraordinary. Often they are sources of suffering. And if that is so, it's good to know that you actually have a choice, that you can stop telling your story. You may not want to. You may enjoy telling your story. It's not that you're wrong for telling your story. Excuse me. But you actually have choice. And many people suffer from not recognizing that choice. I know that there are great debates about free will versus no free will. I'm not exactly speaking of that. I'm speaking of a choice that's present in your story, in the mental makeup of your story. My story, before I met Papaji, looked really good from the outside. I had worked really hard on my story to make it better and on myself and on my health, on my relationships. I had a really good job. I was flourishing in many ways. But underneath that, there was something gnawing at me that was saying it's not enough, or it could all fail, could all end. What am I doing wrong? What about my childhood, which wasn't good? And it would interrupt my fulfillment. It would interrupt the beauty that was around me, and I would suffer unnecessarily. There is suffering in the world. There's suffering in our bodies, planetary suffering, political suffering, as we're well aware of in these times. And then there's unnecessary suffering. There's the suffering that we add to the pain that's already present in the world. And that suffering, that unnecessary suffering, has to do with what we tell ourselves. When our story becomes a repetition of the story of suffering, when we have a habit of retelling events that were painful, that we did suffer in, but we retell them beyond the point of gaining insight from the retelling, just as a habit. And so we have habits of unnecessary suffering. Somehow at this particular time, this was in 1990, I heard of a great teacher, and my husband Eli actually went to meet this teacher, and he wrote me letters back saying, this is the real deal. You've got to come here to India. While I had prayed for a teacher in my mind, in my recognition of my unnecessary suffering, and in my recognition that I didn't know exactly how to really end the unnecessary suffering, I had prayed for a teacher. I didn't expect it would be in India. He would be in India, or that he would be a he. Nevertheless, that's where I found myself. And in meeting my teacher, Papaji, and in recognizing, whoa, this is what I prayed for. This is a real teacher. This is someone who can tell me something that I've missed or overlooked or just never knew. So I paid very close attention. In that moment, I actually stopped attending to anything accept what he would say. And this was just in the first few moments of our meeting. And what he said first was welcome, in a really big way. Welcome. You're welcome here. And then he said, what do you want? And certainly I had thought about what I wanted plenty of times in my life. I thought that was the problem. I thought of it too many times. But here was this teacher asking me, what do you want? And somehow I said freedom. I could just as easily have said peace or love or the end of my suffering. But the word freedom came out. And he said to me, good, you are in the right place. So I gave him in that moment full attention. And I said to him, tell me what to do. I had been to see other teachers before who had passed through the Bay Area when we were living in California. And I thought they were wonderful. And I listened to what they told me to do. I tried to do it. Sometimes it involved particular practices. Sometimes it involved diets. Sometimes it involved a reevaluation of my state. So I was asking him, what do I do? That's what you ask a teacher. And he said, be still. And he quoted Ramana. He said, Ramana says, be still and know who you are. So I heard that as a teaching. I took that in as a teaching. And I got really, in that moment, intent on being still so that I would know who I am. I was working really at being still. I had practiced different kinds of mindfulness meditation. I had practiced being the observer. I practiced merging with states. So I was just trying to recognize, okay, stillness, where are you? And he saw this, of course. We were just in a small room together. And he said, stop. Even that is too much. Really be still. Take this moment. Take this precious lifetime. And stop. The word stop became a holy word for me. But I realize when I tell people this part of the story, they often hear stop as some kind of reprimand, like a teacher saying, stop, that's not good, stop. So another word for stop could be just open. He was saying to me, be still, open your mind. Don't fill it with what you think I'm asking you to do. Just open your mind and see. How far away are you from freedom? How far away are you from peace, from love, from the truth of who you are? Well, this was a huge moment for me. I did experience the arising of a great fear that if I really, really did what he said, which was stop, I could actually lose all that I had gained. And I said that to him. And he said, yes, you will lose everything. This is the opportunity to lose everything. You will anyway when you die or when some event happens that takes everything away. So now, before that happens, in this moment, you have the opportunity to stop, to open, to be still. And in that instant, you can tell the truth about what is always here. In that instant, your mind recognizes its own source, what is before any and all stories, after any story, and in the midst of any story, what is already free from all stories, the great, the sublime, the horrible, the despairing, the anguishing stories. Underneath, in the middle of, surrounding those stories is perfect peace, perfect fulfillment. I stayed with him some time, 6 weeks, that first visit, and there were, I think, maybe 12 other people in the room at that time. He hadn't become a big famous teacher yet. And so I got to hear their questions, and if another question arose for me, I got to ask that question. He would go around the room calling on us and say, always he would get back to, what do you want? Where is it? Or what do you want? Where have you looked for it? If you stop looking, if in this moment you just open, what is here? So I had met my fulfillment. I had met my true teacher, and through him met Ramana, who I had of course heard of. He's a famous teacher, dead guru, but I had never gotten in the simplicity of what he said, the profundity of what he is saying, the invitation. I had never thought it was for me. I thought it was when I get to a certain stage on my path, or when I've accomplished what my story tells me I need to accomplish, my spiritual story or my worldly story. But in the meeting with Papaji and then his introduction to Ramana, I have been overwhelmed with the bliss of being. Not the always happy bliss. I read the news. I'm very aware of the news right now and the suffering that's going on in our cities and the suffering with the pandemic in our world and the injustice that is always going on all over the world and in homes and neighborhoods and cities and countries and regions. So it's not about, I'm not inviting you to close out anything. I'm inviting you to open, and to open more fully than you can even think or imagine. And in that opening, you will discover, you naturally discover what has always been open. You can even remember a time when you were certain you were lost or there was great suffering. And if you reflect on that time from this place of opening, you will see even then there was grace. There was a presence of being, your being, that was untouched by any horror. So after some time, Papaji tested me in different ways and then asked me to bring this invitation to you, to any who are interested. He wanted it to be in the West. And when he first told me that, I said, oh, Papaji, I don't even know Ramana's teachings. I don't know what Advaita Vedanta is. And he said, good, that's excellent. Then you'll only speak from your own experience. So he was not asking me to learn something. He was asking me to share what it is to be, to freely be, to certainly be, without closing anything out, but opening to what is always here. So I am here at his invitation to meet you. It's my great joy to meet you in this. And I thank 1440 for inviting me to participate in this, and Ricky and Avery for running this Zoom call, and the Gangaji staff, Zubin and Harriet, and Barb and Tom for setting this up. Because right away when I came back, I was living in Hawaii by then, I came back and someone said, whoa, you're really different, what's happening? And I just began answering her questions, and it spread very quickly. And it was quite clear that there were more people who wanted to know about it than I could take care of in my living room. And in fact, in this little Hawaii house, the living room was even sagging. So I asked for help. And that was 30 years ago. and help has been here ever since. With the Gangaji staff, certainly I am in abject gratitude to them, but also centers like 1440 who make themselves and present themselves and serve all beings in many different ways. So, and I thank you for tuning in. My talks to people are not like regular talks. I will say more about what it means, what I'm speaking about, and on the theme of this particular meeting. But I'm not really here to give you a talk. I'm here for us to meet in the deepest sense. It may appear superficial, but the potential is for it to be a meeting in the deepest sense, a meeting that transforms your definition of yourself, that transforms the power your particular story, or even the power the particular story you want or desire has. So it's, in that sense, it's essential that I also hear from you, and and we will engage in a conversation, because otherwise this can just be something that you hear and you can nod that yeah, that sounds good, or no, I don't agree with that so much, and it's abstract, it's separate from you. But when we engage in a conversation, then we can see, how is this actually relevant to you in your particular life, with the unique circumstances that you have, as well as the circumstances that you hold in common with all being everywhere. So at a point, I mean, you could even raise your hand now if you have a desire to speak, but at a point I will invite you to raise your hand, and if you have a question, or you have a report, or you have something you want clarified that I've said, and then we can get into a conversation. It's been profound to discover how intimate conversations on Zoom can be. I often have small group meetings and bigger group meetings, and there's a kind of electricity, certainly in all human meetings, just that we are connected limbically, but there's an added voltage to the electricity when we are speaking, and we are hearing, and we are realizing always more deeply the truth of who one is, and how inclusive that is, the totality of that. Because I'm never suggesting that you have to look a certain way, or act a certain way, or feel a certain way, or think a certain way, or talk a certain way. It's not about changing your vocabulary or changing your circumstances, although, as we know, circumstances do change. It's about recognizing what is already changeless. So when I suggest or invite you to open, to be still, to stop your story, I'm really pulling and pushing your mind stream to the recognition of what is always still. The mind comes home to itself, which is you. Your mind stream is a great power of yours, but like all powers, it tries to run the show. When the mind stream is invited back to its source, it's in wonder and in awe, and it's then a servant to the source, to you, to the truth of who you are, the peace, the love, the freedom. So I know even words like peace and love and freedom can be very abstracted, and certainly we have internal definitions of those words that are useless. So all words have become corrupted. Nevertheless, we speak in words. When I say peace, it's not what we think of as peace. It's not peace that is free of conflict. It's peace that is free even in conflict. It's love that is love and free, even in the most horrible experiences of hatred, negativity, loss, dryness. Still, presence is here. So I just want to say again, I'm not inviting you to acquire something. I'm inviting you to recognize who you are, that you are, and that it is a precious lifetime to be, even if that life, or certainly all lifetimes, give you great challenges. And we are certainly in a challenge now, whether it's the challenge of injustice or the challenge of disease, the challenge of loss, the challenge of not knowing. All of those challenges can point us to the deeper recognition of what is here. And then may our meeting somehow radiate out so that here, this beam of light coming from you and you and you can be a beacon of what's possible, regardless of the horror of the times, or regardless of how bad the times get. Because this teaching finally is ancient. Ramana Maharshi gave words to it, very few words, but precious words. Be still and know who you are. And Papaji gave beautiful, articulate, playful, strong words to it. Stop. Stop where you are. Recognize who you are. And Gangaji has appeared in your life to show that it's just like you, regular human being, that you have full capacity to recognize the truth of your being. So I would, I know Ricky said that the last half hour I would take questions, but it's really more like the last hour, so that we have plenty of time to really get into this in a deep, deep way and in a relevant way, your lifetime. What's that, Tom? Great. There is something in the middle of my screen about this webinar is being recorded. Excuse me, we always have little technical things that have to be corrected. It says push continue, but I can see Ricky at the top, but I can't see her on the full screen. No, I could have done that.
Oh, that's all right.
I was afraid to touch it after.
I understand, yes. Okay,
Well,
there.
Gangaji and Tom, would you like me to call on our first attendee?
Great.
Okay,
Yes.
great. I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Sheena, I'm going to go ahead and turn on your video if you're prepared. Just one moment.
Sheena, you said?
Correct, yeah.
Sheena.
Here. Hi there, Sheena. Are you able to turn on your video?
Yep, now I
There
can.
you are. Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Sorry, you know, the room is dark. Sorry. I'm in France, so it's nighttime.
Oh, good, wonderful.
Okay.
Can you turn your volume up just a little bit?
Yes. Is that better? Does
Yeah.
that help? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
good.
Oh, hi, Gangaji.
Hi.
Wow.
Mm,
Wow.
mm,
You know, so beautiful to be with you right now.
mm. Likewise.
I don't have an agenda for this question. It was just, I don't know if I have a question. It was just, as I was sitting with you, I had this, it gave me a chance to be still.
Mm.
And what came up was this idea of I'm in such a privileged space right now. And what can I be doing to help what's happening at home? You know, I'm like, and there's really nothing I can do. And then came this kind of sadness. But then I remembered that, okay, so I think what I want to get at is when you were telling your story about Papaji and how it was a transformation for you, it's been a transformation for me to have met you and to meet with you every month in the forum. I mean, in the webinars. And then you said the transformation that occurs is that one knows peace even in times of suffering. And I haven't reached that point of transformation. I mean, I did though. When we were sitting still and I started getting sad, I remembered something that you say, which is that it could be an indicator that you're not present when you're suffering. Find out if it's unnecessary or not. And I did. I questioned the sadness and I realized that being here with you and everyone else on this call, I know that we're privileged that we're not, you know, under fire, or maybe some of us are in bed sick. I don't know. But there was a peace there at that moment because I was aware that I'm not suffering and there's nothing that I have to do. And then I felt this sense of humility, you know, this deep sense of humility, of just I guess, awestruck with the beauty of the world. But when you did bring that up in the last section of what, just before you turned it over to us to ask questions, I thought, yeah, but I still keep getting caught and not being able to be free in the midst of what I perceive are the stories of pain, you know, the stories of my own personal pain or the story of the world's pain. And that, when you said what Papaji asked you what you wanted, that's what I want. Like, why hasn't that happened? I want to come home and have everyone tell me, you've changed, what do you got? And then I could say, this is what I got.
This is really important, of course, because certainly, I mean, you had a true taste of peace just in the moment of sitting, and everyone on this call, on this webinar, has had true taste of bliss and love and peace. And yet, since that is a state of mind or a feeling, it is bound to come and go. It's in bondage. All feelings. This is maybe the most profound thing Papaji ever said to me. He said, find out what comes and goes. And then you'll find out what doesn't move, what's always here. So then that became the inquiry or the investigation. So certainly I would have oceanic feelings of peace, or do have oceanic feelings of peace, but they are feelings. And by the law of nature, feelings come and go. They have a beginning, they have an end. The moment before I was feeling the oceanic peace, I was feeling something else, wonderful or horrible, and then oceanic peace. And then after oceanic peace, something else. Thoughts come and go. Definitions of peace or love or God come and go. People come and go. Bodies come and go. Planetary systems come and go. We can tell the truth of what comes and goes. And then if you don't expect what comes and goes to never come or to never go, then you can see what's present even when the feeling of anguish appears. So it's not the peace feeling that I'm talking about, I certainly don't walk around in bliss all day. I'm happy most of the time, but I'm not in bliss when I read the newspaper, or if somebody cuts me off when driving, or if somebody's rude to me in a store, if I see somebody I think is being inappropriate. No, they're feelings, they're human feelings that are natural to the human form, that are appropriate. If they're habitual feelings, then I can say they're unnecessary suffering. And that's when I ask you to, look and see, well, how does this fit into your story? And what I would say for you in this moment, and you can investigate this and let me know if it's true. Part of the story is, well, I want to feel peace all the time. And if I don't feel peace, then I'm doing it wrong. And I want to feel peace so people will recognize it and then catch it or whatever. But that may be a beautiful story. It's certainly a spiritual story, but it's still a story about a feeling that comes and goes. Now, I know that there are yogic trainings and yogis who can maintain particular states of mind for 30, 40 years, but that's not what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about what is here before that state of mind, whether it's attained for an instant or for decades, and what's here during that state of mind, and what's here when it passes. So basically, what I'm asking you in this moment is, what are you experiencing right now?
That I am always here.
I am always here. And that feels good, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
You're beaming. Yes, it feels good. But that feeling is not reliable. And when the feeling changes, then you have an opportunity not to get back to the good feeling, but to really go, oh, I don't feel so good now. I don't feel like I am always here. So what is here? Then is the question of inquiry. Then we have our intelligence and our curiosity, those are the gifts of a human brain, a human mind, to really be able to inquire what is here, not what should be here, or how do I get back what was here. That's a kind of bondage.
Yeah.
But you have the freedom to inquire what is here. So if you lose this sense, this blessed sense that I am always here, and you let some other emotion, like you haven't done enough, you need to do more. Is there a feeling that comes with that? An old feeling maybe, or?
Yes, there's a feeling of inadequacy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the point of inquiry. In that moment, you let your mind stream turn directly into inadequacy without fixing it, without dramatizing it, without going numb against it. Because those are strategies of mind to avoid this very feeling of inadequacy. Because it's true, as a human being, you are inadequate. As a form, you can't be here and there. Although you are here now, we've transcended that with this Zoom call. But in general, that feeling of inadequacy is a legitimate feeling. So rather than getting rid of that or bringing some practice into so that another feeling, a better feeling, will be generated, what if you just open to inadequacy? So that you are completely inadequate in this moment. And then you recognize if there are narratives or storylines that go with that inadequacy, you just push them to the side, because you're going to the experiential feeling, the bodily, emotional feeling of inadequacy.
Yeah, I can feel my throat constrict.
So much. I
My
didn't
throat, my throat begins to constrict.
constrict. Yeah, it's like you're being choked maybe or killed even, killed by your own inadequacy. And I'm laughing with you here, but I understand that can be quite intense because all of a sudden we're using our mind streams, our attention in a very different way. We aren't using the attention to keep something away or to get something. We're using the attention to really say, well, what is here? And inadequacy, that can be huge. And we can feel like we will die. So this is the gift of inquiry, is actually meeting death. And in this experience of inadequacy, that's a form of death because you're losing your definition or your hope or your goal of adequacy, of purpose. It's a beautiful, beautiful hope, beautiful goal, but for the purpose of discovering what doesn't come and go. All hopes and goals are in the way. They cloud the vision. So when you allow the constriction in your throat and you allow the whatever bodily sensations and you just send your attention deeper into that rather than running away from that, fixing that. What do you experience just in this moment? There's really no right or wrong answer.
I've been feeling as you've been talking this kind of openness to being it, yeah, and it's not a feeling really, it's in my mind of being humble. There's a humility to it, you know, of, well, that's kind of ego anyway, you know, to be adequate.
Yes, that's right. And when you say humility, and you use that word just a few moments ago, and you talked about the awesomeness of it.
Yeah.
We are afraid of humility for the punishment of it or something, like we will be humiliated. But the humility is actually
It's free.
Yes, it's freeing because
Yeah,
it's
because
free.
then I don't have to do anything.
That's right. And then you're free. And if there is doing, it comes not from your mind, but from this mystery of yourself. Then your mind can follow that. We are trained, we go to school to be trained to lead with our minds. And that's absolutely appropriate in many circumstances. It's appropriate to learn to fight what's going to harm you, like we are fighting this virus, and it's perfectly appropriate to protect yourself from what will harm you, like we wear a mask and we social distance and we quarantine. That's absolutely appropriate. There's a threat to our particular survival. And even it's appropriate, to have a moment where you don't think about it, you deny it, you ignore it, and you've taken the precautions and it doesn't exist. Beautiful. But this is something else. It's not a movement of mind. It's a return of mind to what is here.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I've been wanting to meet you in person, but I'm in France and it's difficult.
Oh, this is so beautiful. I'm meeting you in person.
Yeah.
I was so surprised with the first Zoom calls that the person is so here. Your individuality
Yeah.
is present, and it's beautiful. We see, just a taste of all the forms of the universe in this unique form. Thank you, Shana.
Thank you, Gangaji.
All right, thank you. So next we have up Kara. Let me go ahead and turn their video on. All right. Hi, Kara or Kara, excuse me if I pronounced it wrong. Welcome, but if you would like to please turn on your video.
Here I
There you are.
am.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Gangaji.
Aha! Oh, Gara. Hmm.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing to see you.
Hmm.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna try and get you on a bigger, there, okay. Nervous and excited. I'm so grateful for everybody else talking because I got so much. I am really noticing an addiction to a man story.
Hmm.
And how I betray myself in that story. And I can see it, but I'm hoping that you can help me remember who I am.
What do you want? Well, let me rephrase that, because you said you're hoping that I can help you remember who you are. So I would say that's what you want. But in this relationship, in this addiction, there are relationships and there are addictions, and there is a major difference. But in this addiction, what is it you want? What will it give you if you get what you want?
Love, communion.
Love. Yes, beautiful. So in this moment, if you don't look anywhere for that love, what's here? Just what your experience is, what's here. Really, I'm not waiting for you to say a particular word or state. It's whatever is here. That's what we're meeting. When you stop looking for love any place.
Everything, myself, like nervousness. I can sense some peace, some like the meanness, all of my emotions and aliveness and some love.
How much love? If you focus in on the love, how big is that? Do you find a boundary or a top or a bottom?
No.
So in this moment of inquiry, of actually turning your attention to what you want and not looking to get something, but actually turning your attention to what's here. Is anything needed?
I want to say yes because I'm still hooking in a little bit, but I really can see no.
This is great. That's it. You really can see no, but the habit is to say yes, because I would like for him to come back or call me or whatever it is, or to be here right now. So those are natural desires, especially when it's an intense relationship. I don't know what the relationship is. It's just starting or over or whatever. It doesn't even matter. If you can recognize that those are natural human desires, even addictions are natural in that sense. But there's something that is before natural. That's before hormonal activity or before desires for certain outcomes or before you and it, you and him, you and love, you and happiness, then that's really inquiring. That's a true recognition of what's before all of that. And that's the point. I mean, I'm really not here. I obviously don't know anything about your relationship, and I'm not here to give you any relationship counseling. But I am here to invite you and to point you and to push you and support you in discovering this depth of love that is already here.
I feel like it comes because you're here. You
Well,
know,
what can I say? It's never come before.
no, it's come before.
Exactly. So you have proof that that's not true. It is supported to come back because I'm here, because that's what I'm doing in your life. That's why we meet. That's why Papaji sent me out to ring a bell so that all who are interested, excuse me, it should give you some signal it's coming. Excuse me, I'm gonna just do a little cough drop. That's the point of our meeting. So I've used the analogy of a watering hole before, that yes, there are watering holes, and we go to those watering holes, meetings like this, for nourishment. And even some animals live around the watering hole, but most leave and go about their usual search for food and a life and a mate or whatever it may be. But as soon as you're thirsty again, you know that nothing will take care of that but the water, the essence of your being. And pretty soon you recognize that you don't have to move an inch for that nourishment. But maybe you don't recognize that until someone tells you or invites you to drink so deeply that without a doubt you recognize you are the water that you are being nourished by. You are the love that you discover underneath everything else. And not as a spiritual concept, but as a direct experience when you actually meet. As we just saw before, when she was actually meeting the inadequacy, then she could actually find something under that. So when you meet the unlovability, if that's what's under it, it usually is in most relationships. If you actually meet that, you see that's a phantom. It's a ghost. But it takes facing the ghost to realize what the truth is. That's an old curse. It takes facing the curse to diffuse the curse. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. So when I see it come up, just be willing to sit in it, to
Just be still.
yeah.
Take a moment. You can take 12 seconds. Take 10 minutes or take 2 minutes. And don't fix it. Don't chase it away. Don't put something on top of it. Just let it be here fully. If it's unlovability, if it's inadequacy, if it's weakness, whatever it may be here. And then and letting it be here, I have to keep emphasizing, is very much more essential than acting it out. Like, oh, I'm unlovable, or oh, I'm inadequate. I'm unlovable. Completely, fully unlovable. It just takes a second to recognize the hook of that, but also to recognize the lie of that. You follow?
Yeah.
Follow me?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Thank you so much. I love you.
Such a relevant question.
Mm.
It's how are we with one another?
Yeah.
I want this one. I don't want that one. And those are natural human attributes, but in the depth of yourself, the human is happening on the surface. Nothing, I mean, it can be wrong. There can certainly be bad behaviors or useless behaviors or behaviors that cause unnecessary suffering. But if we don't even concern ourselves with that in this moment of inquiry, rather we just open to the depths. Where is love? That could be a good question for you. Just where is love after all? And that, oh, but I want it over there because it's attracting to me. That's right. There's attraction. But in this moment, where is love? I don't want to make light of addictions and addictive behavior. I know it's miserable, and I expect that most of us on the call have had some, at least inkling of that, whether it's with food or people or activities or just, or politics or whatever it may be. We want it to be the way we want it to be. And it's just often not the way we want it to be. That's the great humbling. But what is the way we want it to be is what we truly want. So if you can ask yourself, what do I truly want? Where am I looking for it? And if I stop looking anywhere for it, what's here? What are you experiencing right now?
Okayness.
Okayness. Yeah, well, it sounds like when you say that, like, maybe I'm reading this into it so you can correct me. It's like, okayness. It's okay, you know.
Yeah,
it's all right.
I think like a flavor of self-hate or a flavor of
This is now getting to it. I mean, I say that's great. It's great in the sense of you've gotten into a deeper, yes. Why would we want love if there weren't some sense of not having love and having instead the opposite of love, which is self-hate? That gets now close to the bone. And of course, we don't want to experience that. And so all of our activity is about not experiencing that. But it doesn't work. Because you can never get enough, because that's always haunting you.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is an opportunity in this moment to actually bring self-hatred here.
Just, yeah, I just feel much fuller and more happy just to speak that, just to have that.
Yes, that's telling you told the truth.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's already, it's that free, and from that truth. And when I said earlier, you have choice, you know, and often we don't realize we have choice. I didn't mean you have choice of this person will be with you or your life will look a certain way. I meant you have choice in the moment to actually turn your attention to what you've been running from. You have choice then to recognize what's underneath that. And you have a choice to be true to that, or to at least recognize when you betray that. And not punish. I'm not suggesting you punish yourself, of course. I'm not saying, you know, bad girl, you had too much self-hatred today. It's just like, oh, we're talking, you know, you could have been born with this. It could have been passed on in the DNA. Or you acquired this at an early age. Many children grow up to have some sense of self-hatred because that's the way they were taught in some way. Bad girl or bad boy. And it gets internalized. And there are lots of ways you can deal with that, but this is not even really dealing with it, it's meeting it. Yeah, and when you meet it, you see how ephemeral it is.
Yeah.
The joy is here.
Yeah. That's the support for me, the truth.
Mm.
Thank you.
No, I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy you brought this here. It's so relevant, so
Mm.
important. There's so much self-hatred in the world that goes unacknowledged and becomes bravado or becomes fundamentalism or just some activity of mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tom.
Thank you, Cara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, and our next attendee will be Gisela. If you'd like to turn on your video and join us, thank you.
What's the name?
I may be pronouncing it wrong, but Gisela is how I'm reading it. There you are. Hi.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
you're
you're welcome.
sideways.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah.
There you are.
Hello, Gangaji. So good to see
Hello.
you again.
Oh.
I met you at the Santa Sabina silent retreat in August,
Oh, wonderful.
and I've been carrying with me your talks, your radio posts, and mostly during all these past 3 months.
Mm.
And I just want to let you know that the foundation for the children that I mentioned, remember I told you I was from Guatemala. Well, it's already created, registered, and we're starting with our humanitarian activity right now as we're speaking.
Mm.
And I wanted to let you know because I had so much support in the community when I reported to you that. And but besides that, I had to leave. I was in the States when this burst,
Ah.
and I had my visa, and I had to leave. And at the beginning, I was like a little bit, not very anxious, very tense to move from the States and fly to another country. And well, my parents, my grandparents are from Spain, so I have a Spain residency. So I flew from the States to Spain. And when I took the decision, I was in peace. I was grateful to be able to afford it, to do it, but the but comes later when I arrived here. And I live alone, and everything. My children are all grown up and they have their own lives and everything. But when I was here, my mind is the same habits that you were mentioning before. My habits became so alive, and my narrative was so intense, and I notice how this psychological time, I mean, when I go to the past and then to the future with my narrative becomes so intense that really makes me suffer a lot.
Yeah.
And then the narrative became about, oh, how could you got into a plane during a pandemic? How could you risk yourself? And all this narrative became so intense with such an emotional charge, and it's been difficult for me to stay still and see what's underneath that fear and that anxiety. I don't know if I'm explaining correctly. I'm trying
No,
to.
you are. You're telling the truth. I can tell you what I'm hearing, and you let me know if I haven't got it correctly. But
Sure.
It's like something, maybe all the stress of the change and everything plugged you back into an old kind of drama in your mind, and there is a lot of stress going on, and so definitely one of the reactions we have to stress is an anxiety, and it's not you know, in terms of survival, that's not unadvised, because if we're anxious, we are paying attention to what needs to be paid attention to. But what I'm hearing you, and when I hear people talk about this anxiety, it's inappropriate anxiety. You've actually taken care of what you needed to do. And so the anxiety becomes some way of punishing you that you're not in a bliss state, or you're not, you know, you're not being quiet all the time. It's unnecessary, and it has to do with, you know, some old latent habit that didn't have an opportunity to spring to life. But then when you're pushed, here it comes, an old ghost, an old demon, an old tendency. And so what an opportunity now. If you fight that demon, the demon may appear to go away, but it will come back stronger. And if you ignore it, you know, you're on top of the anxiety, you get frozen or something. And if you just dramatize it and you walk around anxious and tearing your hair, you know, it's, you know that. It just, it's useless. It's just more drama. So it's really the willingness to actually let your attention fall into the fear that is the root of anxiety, without fear being bad, without judging fear, because fear is natural to all life form. It's part of our survival mechanism. Just to open to the fear. And it's a fear of losing, whether that losing is the ultimate loss, which is death, or losing health, or losing momentum in one's life, or losing what we had. And we do lose. And so the way that Papaji would always say this, it was so profound, was lose everything right now. So that losing is not an issue. Lose it all. Lose all your enlightenment, all your unenlightenment, all your good work, all your bad work, all your positive events, all your negative events. You just lose it all. And what's here in this moment? In the core.
My mind is very active right now.
It's fine.
This wants to ask you, how can you lose all? How it's, I mean, I wanted it, but it's
No,
like
but
my mind wanted to.
good. If you want it so that it will give you something, that's not quite losing. It's
Correct.
losing all hope. It's really meeting death, but meeting death in a way that we can relate to by the activity of our minds. So in this moment, if you have no hope of anything getting better, and you stop fighting that hopelessness or the fear that generates the hopelessness, and you stop like trying to make it all right, then your mind has nothing to do but open. Can you open to fear, or can you open to loss, or can you open to death in this moment, or discomfort? Without an agenda that if you open to it, you will be fixed. It's like without a future. Just
Without a goal. Yeah, without a goal.
Yes, without a goal.
No goal.
As beautiful as goals may be, in this moment, at a moment of inquiry, there's no future. That's where goals are met. There's no past. That's where the punishment is generated, or the incentives. But in just this moment.
Now that you're saying all this, my body feels all this like electrical sensations, like electricity, tremors.
Yeah.
And my habit, when all this arises, my usual habits are, no, I don't, this is not what I want to be. This is not what I want to feel. It's automatically, I don't really think about it.
Yeah.
It's like you were saying, you get numb, or you just evade, or just dissociate, or it's so automatically, and I'm beginning to feel, or I get paralyzed, you know, my mind, my body. But I have noticed that usually comes like that, and I
That's,
have
you
noticed.
know, that's, you learned how to deal with it. And so that's no judgment on that. That's really fine. It has its place. You can get through things when you know, just can really steel yourself to do it. But this is just something different. So even underneath the getting rigid or keeping it together, or just, as you say, the electricity, the energy, the vibration that's happening in your solar plexus, or in your heart, or in your throat, just to allow that life force to be here as it is. What's your experience?
Liveness.
Aliveness, yes.
Pure liveness.
Yes, aliveness.
Yeah, liveness, being alive,
Yes,
feeling everything.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
And some of those
allowing,
feelings. No, go ahead. I interrupted you.
allowing myself to this liveness, however it comes and goes, and however it can be felt like, or
That's freedom. That's freedom. Then you can recognize quite clearly, without working it out, what comes and goes. And sometimes the electricity is intensely here. And sometimes you do have to take some action with it. You have to lie down, or you have to go by the sea, or in nature. It's all totally appropriate and recommended. But finally, just to be able to open, yes, to be here as the source of it all. Then you aren't haunted by it. Then it doesn't drive you. It's appearing in you, like weather appears, an electrical storm, thunder and lightning, wind, maybe most like a wind. Like some winds are very uncomfortable, but they're not personal. They're natural phenomena. This too is that. It comes with this body. With most bodies, but maybe it's more with this particular body. It often is that way, that we have more weather patterns, just like certain places on the planet have more weather than other places. So say there's a lot of weather here. Yeah, you can just let the weather be the weather. And then you recognize you're untouched in the core. You are the stillness that all this wind and energy and electricity is going around.
Thank you.
But I'm not saying to push yourself into that place. It's just, yes, because it's sometimes quite appropriate to, you know, to break the pattern in whatever way, with a walk or a conversation with a friend, whatever. That's all allowed and perfect. But then by yourself, when you feel this, there is an invitation and a possibility to go deeply inside. But I wanted to also really say how happy I am about your connections. I hope you connected with Sheva. I know that she wanted to speak to you, and just the possibility of supporting children, and how beautiful that is, and how recognized that is. So
thank you very much. Lots of love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Gangaji, would you like to take another question or two?
I think I can do one more. I'm having some throat things, but I have my handy cough drop, so.
Alrighty. All right, so next up we have Johnny here. I'll go ahead and, Johnny, if you're comfortable, please turn on your video for us. Thank you for joining us.
Johnny.
Mute. Hi.
Oh, there you are. Hi. Hi.
It's so nice to be here with you.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I want to just thank you for being such a generous and graceful and just a real guiding light in my life the last few years. It's been, I'm emotional, I hate to say this, of course, but I really do. I see such an immense light from within you, and I'm so grateful to be able to recognize that that's my light as well. You know,
Yes.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And yeah, do you mind if I just dive right in?
Sure, dive in. Yes.
Okay, so I have so much to share. I have so much love that I want to express, and I know that I'm not alone, and I don't want to single myself out as being somehow more capable and ready of shining, but I do find myself so frustrated at I'm struggling because your generosity is so incredible, and I you know, watching you field these other questions, and then I'm recognizing, I'm like, we've got all these other things in the world to deal with other than these issues, but then I realize that every one of these issues is a microcosm of the whole thing, and I see that it's so beautiful. But I guess I don't know what I'm saying. I think I'm struggling with my reactivity, and I think my reactivity is keeping me from shining as brightly as I could, and all right now.
So Johnny, let me just interrupt. What if that part, that my reactivity is keeping me from shining as brightly as I could, that's the story? What if you drop that part? Just that storyline.
Yeah.
Then the charge of the reactivity, it has nothing to charge with, you know. It's like you just dropped a line. Okay, you're reactive. So you're reactive. It's human nature to be reactive. But if you don't have charge with that, does that really have anything to do with the light that's coming from you in this moment?
No, not at all.
And look, you're giving it to all the people on this call. I think there's probably 400 people on this call. So we're getting to see you up close.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to be seen. I think that's one of the big issues in the world is we don't see each other. We don't eliminate everything we think we know, and we just, you know, we're so shrouded and we have all these filters to see the world. And I see so much of that. I'm sensitive to a lot of that, possibly more than most. I don't want to, it's hard to qualify or quantify it, but I see so much of that ignorance. I see so much of that seeing the world with this shroud.
Yes.
Limited and ignorant worldview. And I just want to be seen for who I am right now. And yet you want to be seen, and that's the beauty of inquiry.
So the secret, honestly, I promise you, I guarantee it with my life, is to be willing to see.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't mean you're universally seen. People will see you or they won't see you. It's a mystery. But in the seeing itself, even seeing through reactivity, you're still seeing. You may be reacting in part to what you're seeing, but you're not reacting totally to what you're seeing. You are primarily seeing, and you recognize you're seeing aspects of your own self.
Yeah.
And you know, that's both beautiful and horrible because it's the totality.
And
It's,
isn't what I'm reacting to is right? It's my
yes,
my own anger at my own complicity or
yes. Yes, and you know, that can be very useful. It can be part of your intelligence to recognize, oh my God, what I hate in this is what I haven't met here. And that's part of maturing and intelligence developing and taking a stand. How beautiful. I mean, this precious life. But when it comes from seeing, yes, then it's grounded in they don't have to change for you to see, or they don't have to see you for you to see. It's you are free to see, and it can have profound effects on how you live your life, what you stand for, what you offer to people, and also your humility at being reactive at times. You know, that's really great that we are human beings, and that human beingness, it can be very humbling, as it's been spoken a couple of times today. And that humbling itself is then a kind of overflowing of love and prostration to the mystery of it, and to the fact that as individuals, we are actually not in control of it. That's not where our choice is. Our choice is to recognize that we can meet, we can see, and we can bear whatever is seen, and we
I,
can love.
yeah, I think I'm able to access that love when I am not even when I'm not trying to control anything,
Yeah,
when that storyline that I have that I could have any power to control any of this, but that's a habit, that's a deep old habit for me.
that's wisdom to see that. Yes, as somebody was speaking about addiction, we are addicted to the powers of the mind, and so it is a huge event when you disengage from that habit, or you even recognize, wow, this is a habit, because we get fed in something, maybe it's just adrenaline from the habit. So there is a choice to be sober in that, to be willing to experience all the craving for the old way of doing it, mentally, emotionally, physically, however, and to not move, just to be absolutely still in that.
Isn't that such a radical call for these times, because we have people out in the streets right now, and I've I've been the one saying we have to take stock, we have to look within, be still and know thyself, and I get this, but we have to act, so there's another question I wanted to ask you, is how do we counter this the strength of this stillness with really meeting this moment where I do believe something is called for. I just, yeah,
I agree. And I think the very question, how, is a really good question. But the problem is when we immediately give an answer from our minds to that. If that can be the question, that you open to that question, and then your discovery is how, in fact, you respond to these times. And maybe it is on the street, or maybe it is in retreat. Who can say? You don't know that beforehand. It's just your willingness to say how. And in that, there's an availability. And in this moment, you are serving everyone who's looking at your face. How did that happen? Well, it happened because you raised your hand, for one thing, because you wanted to engage, because you're here. So what a mystery that the how gets taken care of. Listen, it is quite appropriate to stand up and to demonstrate and to say no, just like we are doing with the virus, to say it to injustice too. That's a virus that's infected our human strain. So yes, yes and no are both really finally this willingness to see, to give, to inquire, to ask, to discover.
Yeah, that letting the how be humbled in the face of the mystery is, oh,
Yes, that's wow, that's right. That's delicious too, you know, because wow,
yeah.
something so big then is in charge, as it is. It's just then the mind recognizes how big. Oh, how perfect that you're the last one to speak on this particular call, this particular meeting. Very relevant.
I'm so
Thank
grateful.
you.
Thank you.
Me too. So grateful. Hmm.
Thank you, Johnny.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, thank you, Gangaji. Would you like to close us out here the last few minutes?
Well, I'd like to thank you, Ricky. I
course.
really appreciate your adaptability in the format, and Avery working the board, and everyone at Multi-University 1440, and everyone who called in, everyone who attended, whether you spoke or not, just the attendance, is the presence and the connection and the miracle of connection. So I'm really happy to have been with you all. Thank you.